All right, we're going to be adding a layer of dark green on our hill to finish it off before we add our shrubbery and a cedar tree. So it's a different type of tree. And so I just mixed, this was dried up, so I already had it on my palette, but this is just a drop of water. It's got a lot of green in it and some black. So it should be a very, very dark green, like almost like a swampy green color. Okay, and then we're just gonna gently streak that like we did yesterday with the brown. Clean our brush, and then use the water from the clean brush to spread around that darkness. Just so that we have a variety of colors happening in this little hill. Kind of like our reference picture. There. Okay, so we've got lots of values. We've got some browns happening in here. We've got some dark green, regular grass green. Got lots of colors happening here. And I'm just using water to push around these colors. And if I want, I can add that detail of the brown. While this is still wet, I can do a couple of those diagonal lines or that kind of section of brown that I see. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna move on to the tops of my little pine trees that are happening here at the bottom of this picture. In the picture, they're practically black, but I'm gonna keep them green. It's gonna look more like these trees, but I'm gonna put them here. And you can make them black if you wanted to. You know, every artist gets to make their own interpretations. So if you want them to be super dark green, like almost black, then make them dark and almost black. I'm gonna keep using the same color, the same dark green color. I'm gonna roll my paintbrush through the paint to make sure it's nice and sharp, meaning the bristles are all coming together to a sharp point. Of course, you could use your hand to do this, but it works much better if you're able to roll your paintbrush. And this is my little brush. This is a size 3 paintbrush, round brush. I'm gonna roll it to a sharp point. Now to make these trees, what I do is I make little tiny vertical lines pretty close together, different sizes. So I'm just gonna do a few at a time. So this is how I start off. My brush has a tiny little curl to the tip of it. That curl is what I'm using to start, and I'm just barely tapping left and right from the center. As I go down the tree, I'm gonna tap a little bit harder, still just going left to right from the center and all the way down. All the way down. I haven't even picked up more paint yet. This has still had quite a bit. All right, so now I feel like I have a really big gap between these two trees. So I could either make this one bigger, just extend those branches out a little bit. Or the other option would be to make another tree in between. So I could have made another tree, added another vertical line, and just added another tree there to fill in that space. rolling in the paint to pick up more, and then still just tapping with the very, very tip of that brush back and forth across the tree branch, the base of the tree. But I do want to cover, I don't really want to see much of the base of that tree. And every now and then in a few of these, while the paint is still wet, we want to take the handle of our brush and make a little vertical line to kind of hint that we can see the tree branch, that we can see the, sorry, I keep saying the tree branch, I mean the base of the tree. Okay, so I've got that group done. Now I do feel like there's a big gap right here, so I'm gonna add another tree behind. Okay, I'm gonna put one here. Now our picture has 3 or 4 really tall trees. My practice ones did not turn out very well, so I don't really want to try again. I'm just gonna keep them small. All right, so filling in right there. I could add another one right here if like there's kind of a gap here. Okay, and I just want to do that all the way across, different heights, different levels, and every now and then don't forget to use the handle end of your brush to fill in. Okay, so variety of sizes. You really want to make sure the bottom of these trees is really thick. This could be kind of a faster way to fill it in, and then go back and focus on the tops. Add any extra trees that we don't want any gaps. Get a tiny bit of water. I see my brush keeps separating. Now with adding water to my paint, it will dilute the paint and make it not as dark. So I may need to add more paint. I'm just gonna have to wait and see what this looks like when it's dry. Okay, but I am seeing a lot of gaps here, so I'm just gonna fill that in with some dabbing. Yeah, I can tell that's gonna be a little bit thinner, so I'm gonna go ahead and add more paint. I'm just rolling to pick up. All right, with this being, so I made this batch, looks a little bit darker than the previous batch. So I may want to take this dark color, layer it a little bit on some of these trees that appear to be more in front, make them a little bit darker. Just to give them another layer of value, give them a little more fullness. Okay, I'm just barely dabbing. All right, do you see what it did right there to fill in the spots, fill in those gaps? All right, I'm gonna make sure we just go back and definitely fill in along the bottom. And all the way to the edge. And anywhere it looks too watery, just go back and add a little bit more dabbing and fill it in. All right, I'm satisfied with the way that that looks. Last thing I want to do with this painting to finish it is if you have a white gel pen, you can use a white gel pen to fill in our moon and maybe add a couple of stars, like the nighttime sky is just kind of coming in. Or you could use white acrylic paint if that's all you have. We want something, you want to use something to show that moon. You just want to barely cover up your pencil marks. And then you could do just a couple of dots. All right, and then that one is done. All right, then we're gonna come back to our painting at the top. It is almost done as well. We're gonna add a shrubbery. We're gonna add shrubbery and a tree. And this is our inspiration, is this what's happening over here, but we're gonna bring it closer to the center. Still using our dark color. I'm gonna add a little bit more green to it so it's not as dark as it was. I want the little bush or the shrubbery that I'm making to be not quite as dark. If this is the top of the hill, a little bit down from the top of the hill, I'm just gonna kind of near the middle. If I were to divide the paper in half, I just want to draw a really thin line. And then dabbing, just like before, just like how we were filling in our trees. I'm going to turn this into a little bush or some shrubbery. Just want to make sure that the edge of this does not look too patterned. And make sure that those lines are going different directions so that the leaves look like they're going different directions. And then we're going to make sure we go all the way to that line, because we actually want that line to go away. It was just kind of a guide to get us going. Okay, if you filled it in too much, you might need to use a little bit of clean water to come back and lift out, do that brush lift technique and lift out some spots to bring in some lightness. If you made it too watery, you're going to need to let it dry a little bit and then add more paint into it to darken it up. I don't feel like this end is as random, which it's also going to be covered by a tree, so that doesn't really matter. I do want to make sure that the edge of this Okay. We should make sure we've got lots of values in there. It's not just all one color. Doing a little bit of a brush lift right now. Just lifting out some of that darkness. So we've got some lighter values and dark values all next to each other. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry for a minute, and then I'm gonna darken up my color so I can add some brown to it. A little bit more black. A little bit more green. So I want this color to be clearly darker than the color of the shrub. Okay, for my tree, I'm gonna roll it in the paint. Remember, this is a cedar tree, so it's gonna be differently shaped than our pine trees from below. All right, so I'm kind of holding my brush backwards because I want to be able to press down and then lift it up to a sharp point. Okay, I want it to go up into the sky. We want it to be at least twice as big or twice as tall as the shrub. We're gonna hold our brush straight up and down and very, very gently. And we want to make little branches that go up and out. And as we go down, they want to get bigger and come out farther and then get a little bit flatter towards the bottom. I want to do the same thing on the other side, so I'm gonna kind of tilt my brush the other direction. Okay. So that's the base. Then I'm going to use the tip of my brush and add texture going downwards on every single branch. Kind of like dabbing. I'm going to dab all the way across the branch, or you can like swipe. You're like making every individual brush mark across the entire thing. Okay, it looks really thin, so that's just kind of the first layer. So we're going to do that on both sides. All right, so now we want to come back and dab across the middle. To fill it in, we want to cover up our tree trunk, so that really all we're left with are the branches that come out. And if we feel like we need to make more branches, then we can make more branches. I need to add more dabbing in between, add more dabbing in between. And then the very last thing to do is to load our brush again with more paint. And then we're just going to lay the brush kind of flat and just pull it across the land to make a shadow. Okay, so it's kind of picking up the texture of the paper. All right, our tree is taller, so this shadow should go farther. And we are done with our first two paintings.